Why is it that Nashville is such a special place?
I think the roots are probably in our songwriting culture. If you've ever been, I know you have, we all have, but if you've ever been to a songwriting round, Night at the Bluebird, nobody writes alone. All these guys and gals are like, yep, I wrote this song they list a bunch of people and they're telling some funny story. They were drunk, they were whatever. And then, Tim McGraw cut it. And you're like, oh, that's how that one. And every single time. And I think that is in the water here. So that, you were telling me the meetups and the stuff you do for other agencies. I think there's other cities that you'd be like, no, I don't talk to other agencies. I don't care what they're doing. If they could even take a client, I don't even know. They're not allowed here. And so I think for people in Nashville to say, how can I help? And I think that's what allows Nashville to be special, whether you're starting the next barbecue sauce empire or you're starting, some technology company, is that people generally want to help. And that's some of our job at the EC is if we think we can't, or if we know that there's somebody or some other organization that can help you better or faster, we'll be the first ones to say it. And we see that as our role too, to say, okay, yeah, here's what we can do. But if you go across town to this place, and I will send an email while you're on your way.
On Creative Assembly's The Spark podcast, our mission is to amplify Nashville's diverse creative voices, foster growth through shared journeys, and inspire a city that thrives on collaboration. And now, here's The Spark.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Spark. I'm your host, Mark Scrivner, and today I'm joined by a good friend and someone that's building out the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Nashville. Sam Davidson, he's the CEO of the EC here in Nashville, the Entrepreneur Center, and I'm so excited to have him on the show and talk about entrepreneurship and everything you're seeing. You have came from this world, Sam, and you've been an entrepreneur many times before you took on this role. So, Sam, welcome to the show, man.
You bet. Thanks for having me, man. Love the studio. Love the spot.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about this episode, man. I'd love to hear your story, and maybe just to kick us off, if you don't mind, maybe take the audience through your journey.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up here in Nashville. So I was born in Florida, but didn't stay there long. My dad was a healthcare guy. And so he got on with HCA, so finally got called up to the HQ here in Nashville. So we moved here when I was in second grade. So almost a native, but seen it grow a lot. Went to a high school downtown at Hume-Fogg, college in Birmingham, and didn't know what I was going to do after. So moved back where I at least knew people and needed a job. So I worked in hotel management for a couple of years, somewhere I never thought I'd be, but when I got out of college, I thought I want to make a difference with my life, my job, my whatever. And so wanted to work at a nonprofit, but just couldn't find anything. And the one skill I had in college that I had a part-time job around was audio-visual, connecting microphones and screens for events on campus. And so the Marriott Airport Hotel by the Nashville Airport was hiring an event technology associate, which was just, we're having business meetings, go hook up their projector. I was like, all right. And so didn't think I'd be there long, but ended up being there a couple of years and was thankful that I was, because I took no business classes in college, did not think I would be, quote, in business, especially not an entrepreneur. But there, I mean, learned so much about, I ran my own P&L, selling, customer service, hiring, firing, budgeting, all those hard skills that looking back, I'm very grateful for. But was there a couple of years and then got to work at Oasis Center. And that's where I took a look at the nonprofit world and understood that a little bit, and especially some trends that were happening there, which is when I started my first company in 2006. And then, was an entrepreneur for 17 years. We can unpack all that, but have been at the EC now for 2.5 years. Yeah,
man. Well, that we have a lot in common. Actually, my daughter graduates from Hume-Fogg this spring.
Fantastic.
So, anyway, but I was in the hospitality restaurant business too to start out. So it's interesting. And then you started Cool People Care.
Yeah, that was the first company.
Venture.
It was, and the first time, and I think a lot of first time entrepreneurs maybe experiences or feel like this. Maybe you did, but we were sitting there and we learned a couple things again back in 2006. So 2006, you got to go all the way back, but Facebook was only for college students. Twitter didn't exist. Instagram didn't exist. YouTube had just launched its very first video. No Instagram. And MySpace was the coolest thing in social media. And young people were using it. And those young people, Generation Y, millennials, were the first ones to graduate college with volunteerism kind of programmed into what they were doing. So, hey, if you want this scholarship, you got to, do community service 10 hours. If you want to do this, and a lot of colleges had offices of community service. And so you would graduate and people were like, who is doing this for me? And obviously in Nashville, we've had organizations like Hands on Nashville that can do that, but companies weren't, and it was hard to find those opportunities. And we saw that at Oasis Center. We served young people, and we were like, how can we go reach them? Because they're not reading the newspaper. They don't want a letter in the mail, but that's what nonprofits were using. So buddy down the hall, Stephen Mosley, I was like, man, it seems like we do more, use these new tools to reach young people. What do you think? And so his solution, he had been in the business space and had started some things before, started an agency himself. And he was like, let's build a website and let's get young people there and showcase essentially what became social content, different causes. Let's do a volunteer calendar. Let's do a nonprofit directory. Let's tell people how they can make a difference. And so we did it, launched it, built a company around it. And within about a year or so, had several thousand folks signed up for a daily email and had sold ads against that. And premium placement, if you're an organization that wants to be seen sooner. And it was about a year in where I was like, man, I don't know what this is, but this is what I want to do. And it didn't mean run that company forever, but it was sort of, I loved taking an idea and then building something, like setting it up, making it real. And it was cool to see that success. Of course, we raised some money around it. So I got immediately kind of experience into how to raise money, how to pitch, how to hire, run a team. And so got kind of the full dose of that and had a really good run. And then around that, we built kind of a lifestyle brand, a merchandise line, because people wanted to support us. Because I don't know if you know this, but selling ads to nonprofits is not, in retrospect, if I'd really done my research on the TAM and the SOM and everything, it wouldn't have been that lucrative. So I didn't know that piece, but I was like, this thing's not making a lot of money. But then lo and behold, we launched a line of t-shirts, and that's where we were kind of off to the races a little bit. And our biggest year was when it flooded. It flooded in 2010. We did one of the fundraising t-shirts, raised about over $100,000 for flood relief. And so shipped thousands of shirts, had our shirt on Anderson Cooper when he was here, the We Are Nashville line. And so, again, got a crash course in all of it.
Awesome. Yeah. That was your MBA.
That was my MBA, my what am I doing? Have our website crash because you're on CNN. It was not fun, but we did like only organic shirts. And we, I remember talking to the phone because we used several local printers because the orders just kept coming that night. And we had bought all of the organic blue cotton shirts on the Eastern Seaboard. Every supplier was like, we don't have any more. And I was like, okay, I don't think these people would care much that it's organic. I think they just wanted to support Nashville. So let's get whatever light blue shirts you can find.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun watching your journey from, the outside, but, and I know the audience is going to love to hear your story because I don't know if I knew the whole story. Yeah. But, what's been fun is like seeing you be able to pivot. A lot of people get into business and they go, this is all I'm going to do. And, maybe their clients take them a different direction, which sounds like it did early on with that. You also pivoted and started Batch, which I know was, just an amazing company here in Nashville that you ran for a long time. Yeah. Maybe how did you what pivot took you there?
Yeah, it's I've heard somebody say, I can't remember who, but as you get on in years, people like to say like, man, one thing led to another. And you're like, yeah, that didn't feel like that. I'm glad looking back, it sort of makes sense. But in the moment, because we grew Cool People Care, and then nonprofits, like I said, they didn't want to pay a lot of money to put an ad on a website, but they were willing to pay us or go attend something of teach us how. So teach us how to use this YouTube thing or teach us how to blog. And so I got a chance to start traveling and speaking and delivering content at conferences or one-on-one. And I was like, all right, well, this isn't really what Cool People Care does. It's what I do. So should I set up a business now that I know how to do it around this? And so I would definitely speak. But then with Matt Chevrant, we started Proof, which was an agency that built websites, did some branding. I consulted kind of on the comm side. And we got to work with a lot of charter schools and nonprofits. And that was really meaningful and gave me a shot at, okay, this is what an agency is like. Because, you know how glamorous it is every single day. It's so easy. And it's so easy. And you just be with clients. And the best part and the worst part is clients. I'll say that. You don't have to say that. But again, meaningful work when you help somebody launch a business. And I was surprised by how many. Again, this was 2011, 2012. how many people were using us because they didn't have a ton of money and we were very low cost, but to launch their consulting business or their event planning business, and they just needed something out there. And so it was cool to talk to them as we were designing a site or coming up with a comm strategy of, all right, what are you about? Who are you trying to reach? Tell me why you're doing this. And they'd always have some personal story. So I enjoyed doing that. When I would travel to see a client or speak, I didn't want to bring back to the family some tchotchke from Kansas City. I was like, no, because I know what I like doing in Nashville. So let me find the local coffee shop and bring back some local coffee. Let me see the Parnassus of Chicago, and let me bring back a book for my kid. And so I started thinking about that in Nashville and talked to two friends that I had done businesses with before and just said, guys, this was 2013. The Music City Center is opening, this brand new, beautiful conference center designed to attract a different kind of conference. We're going to have a different kind of tourist. And where can they get all of our good local stuff? This Christmas prior, I wanted to send a gift of mine to friends in Denver, and went online and searched Nashville gift box, Nashville gift set. And I got two results. I got Jack Daniel's barbecue sauce, which love all those words, and a shot glass shaped like a boot that had the word Nashville on it. I was like, it's not what I'm looking for. Where's the Olive and Sinclair chocolate bar? Give me Bang marshmallows. Give me Bongo Java coffee. So I went around town all day. Spent half a day driving around town, waiting in line, getting a box, waiting in line. I was like, come on. And so I told my friends about it. I was like, should we start either a gift shop near the Music City Center? Let's open a store. And I was like, we have never opened a store. We have never run a store. You got to buy inventory. You got to sign a lease. You got to hire people. We don't have money. Okay. But subscription boxes were awesome back in 2013. Dollar Shave Club, Birchbox. We said, let's do that. And so the original idea was 4 Nashville-made items. And we thought we'd sell them to people like us, people who go to the farmer's market, go to the festival, and you're like, oh, a new popcorn brand, a new candle maker. And if you weren't there that weekend, you didn't get to meet them. And we thought it would be this discovery tool. And so we built out the site because we had that skill. We branded it, and we set a couple of parameters in terms of, when we launch, we want at least an interest list of 100 people who we can at least email them and say, here you go. We got to 200. All right, keep going. We launched it and we said by our 3rd month, we need 200 subscribers. That's our break even and makes it worth it. We'll just do it. This wasn't our get rich quick. We all had other jobs. And we launched it in August of 2013 and we got 200 our first month. And so we're like, okay, cool, we did it. And when that thing went out and people got it and opened it and saw what it was, they started sharing it. And this was back in the days of Facebook, where pre-ad weighted algorithm and everything, everybody saw everything. And so people were sharing it, the style blueprint, the Tennessean, Nashville lifestyles. They all thought it was the coolest thing. I wake up the day after Labor Day and I had 600 orders. And I was like, I don't know if the people can make 600 of these. These are like really small businesses. And it kept going. And I didn't shut it off. And we got 1,000. So our 3rd month, we had 1,000 subscriptions. And I was like, all right, boys, I think we've got a real business here. And the other aha moment was what we realized from day one. I love it. I love shopping at a place when you can select a gift note. But most of them, they spend the least amount of money on it. It's some slip of paper you lose. Yeah. I was like, guys, we're going to do handwritten notes. Day one, handwritten notes. And 80% of even that first gift was a note, which meant this was not for people who wanted to discover. This was not for locals. They were going to somebody else. And I was like, all right, that's not what we thought. So I meant 2 things. Number one, people wouldn't renew. Because if I got you a subscription for 3 months, you appreciate it, you're thankful. But you may, if you live in Des Moines, you're not going to necessarily keep buying it. But it meant we had a real option to actually pivot from being a subscription company to being a gift company. Higher margin, people will pay for that. And for the 11 years that I was there and running it, still 80% of our orders or more were gifts. And so to your point about pivoting and going where your customer leads you, they led us into the gift space, and especially when corporates called. When corporates called that first Christmas, we had a couple folks, law firms, saying, "Oh, I see you do gifts," and I wasn't that smart. I was like, "Oh no, we do subscriptions," and they're like, "Well, we're looking for a gift." I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Well, normally we send an intern out, and they go to Kroger and they get Goo Goos and some other thing, and we put them in the conference room and they send it out. Can you do all that for us?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I was like, "And you'll pay me as much as a 3-month subscription?" Okay, let's do that. And so we had done in about 4 months, we did about $250,000 that first year. And so I was like, all right, I think I know what this should be about. And so opened a store the next year, and then it was kind of off to the races from that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything you did at the agency with Proof Branding, you and Matt, I mean, it was very impressive. I mean, even though it was in the early days and you were doing smaller stuff, I mean, you guys were doing great work, and that led right into, Batch, and that's super impressive. I mean, I remember, when the pandemic happened, I had a couple clients that shipped me batch boxes to my house, and it was like, God, just that experience of actually receiving it is just unbelievable.
Man, that's you're making me think about the good old days. I mean, in 1 year, I remember, because we worked with the largest law firms in town, banks, you name it. I remember I saw somebody once at a chamber event or something. They're like, we got 7 boxes at our house or our office last week, because their accountant sent them one, their lawyer sent them one, their bank sent them one, their whatever. And I was like, okay, I think we're gonna make it. Just because to be that go-to. And there's several options now. There were several options then when we were there. And so just to stand out on the service side, or to be able to get into customization where it wasn't like, look, you got to pick A, B, or C. It's sort of like, what are you trying to do? And then especially in COVID hit, I mean, we thought we were gonna close, because that was in March. Most of our revenue, we only were able to exist and be there in December because our retail store at the farmer's market carried us January through October. And a lot of retail's like that. You kind of break even or lose money for 10 months and you make it in 6 weeks. And so for our retail store to close, especially in March, right after we bought our spring inventory for tourists and conferences, where we thought, me and my co-founders were like, are we done? Like, it was a good run, and nobody had global pandemic on their dance card, so maybe. But we said, well, we've got stuff. Let's just see if we can sell some of it online. We were able to stay open as an online shipper because we were deemed essential, because we sold essentially groceries, because we had jam and biscuit mix and all this. And so we put our retail people in our warehouse. And then about 4 weeks into the pandemic, Lipscomb and Vanderbilt called and said, graduation's going virtual. Can you send a gift to all our graduates? Wow. We're like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then by that point, people had figured out virtual conferences, work from home. And not just in Nashville, but that was when we really started getting calls from other cities. And so EY, global, national, whatever, EY does an intern program every summer. And they said, all these interns that were going to come to Chicago and Atlanta and Louisville, they're virtual. We've got a list. We'll tell you how many per city, but we have a dozen cities. If you can curate from them and send them each a gift where they were going to be for the summer, what does that cost? And then that was the aha moment of like, oh, we can do this globally, all from Nashville. So we started doing that. And again, it's one of those examples of making, lemonade out of lemons, where we thought we were done. And then we ended up doubling during the pandemic.
That year was like a double.
It was a double. And just because, and the team banded together, and it was obviously so hard. And so by the end of 21, we had doubled without a retail store. So you'd take in what had been half our revenue and you lose it, and then you double, including that. And so I guess that's a 4X or however the math on that works. And then in 22, at the end of 21, I was like, to keep this up, I have to go raise money, because we went from shipping 8,000 gifts a year to shipping over 50,000. And so I was like, that's a different infrastructure. That's more warehouse. I got to go raise money to keep this going, but it's an impressive story. And ended up at a weird spot because of where we were on the revenue side and being a product company. And so ended up finding a private equity buyer in 2022 instead of an investor. And so had an interesting deal, a good deal worth doing. And so we sold the company, majority stake in the company, in the summer of 2022. Wow. So almost 9 years into that, having since founding. We ran it, and then I got to still be on as CEO, and obviously had a minority stake in it, and then had a chance to go help lead the EC a year later in 2023.
Yeah. Man, well, how many companies do you think maybe you saved with Batch during that time period that thought they were going to shut down? I mean, you're shipping their products out.
I mean, you had nationally, so in 2020, you had over 1 million businesses close, so all-time high. The cool part, and this is the American spirit of entrepreneurship at work, in 2021, you had a record number of new businesses started. Because again, even though we weren't sort of out of the woods, we'd at least figured out how to operate in the pandemic, restaurants, et cetera. So that's just, again, some data. I don't know how many we saved, but I know we gave so many an opportunity. I know some of the coolest stuff we did, which again, that's why when I had a chance to interview for and take the job at the EC, I was all in because one of the coolest things for me about running Batch was I bet we worked with 500 small businesses, suppliers, various sizes, various products from all over. And to hear somebody say, man, I just started this soap company and then you guys had an order. And I remember we had a cocktail mix early on. I met the guy right after he started his business. And we said, all right, yeah, let's use you for our upcoming gift. I need 500 units. And he was like, okay, let me go figure out how to make 500 units. Where do I get 500 bottles? And upgrade? But he was like, that PO gave me the confidence, like, wait a second, this can be a real business. And so he went on to do that and grow it. So yeah, Save, man, I don't know, but it was really cool to give folks an outlet, especially because if they were physical retail first and non-grocery especially, and those businesses closed, I mean, there were no farmers markets. There were, for a time, there were no festivals, music festivals, and they would go do a couple grand, like that's gone. And so yes, to get our order of saying, hey, this corporate, the biggest order we ever got, we did $250,000 that first year. We got the first $250,000 single order happened during COVID because it was a mega conference coming to town. And they were like, all right, we can't do it. We need however many thousands of units. It's a national sales conference for a manufacturer. And so they were like, send us, let's send them out. And so I was like, all right. I remember that was a couple different weekends because again, this is like saying, we talked about earlier, man, saying when you say yes to clients, of course, they were like, well, we've already printed like the conference agenda, name tags, all this stuff. So they're like, if we mail that to you, can you put those? So we had like 2,500 name tags and lanyards. And we said yes. And so we matched, Mark Scrivner, here's his name tag and his lanyard. Make sure it's on his shipping label. And I don't know how we did not have any errors, but it was just the meticulousness, the detail of our people. Like, we said, yes, they're paying us. Thank goodness. Let's support them. And so just doing stuff like that is kind of funny, a little PTSD, a little nostalgia.
Nights and weekends.
Yeah, you just do it. You just do it.
Figure it out, right?
You do.
You've now got your doctorate. So you've you got it by owning an agency. And everybody looks at your journey and says, God, Sam, you got so lucky, man. You fell into these things. They don't know how hard you worked.
Sure.
But you worked hard to get your doctorate, to get you to where you're at today. And, the EC comes along and wants to recruit you in as the CEO. And I mean, you're uniquely suited for this role. And so, but you also are following in some big footsteps from the past too. And, tell us a little bit about like why the EC, why at this time, what attracted you?
I mean, having been in Nashville and an entrepreneur in Nashville as the EC was birthed, it was kind of cool. And look, I was not in any of those early meetings, but to see it happen, to hear that it was happening, I went in there when it was on Lower Broad, their sort of first temporary space. And I remember walking in there and just being like, wow, there's a place that helps people start. I wish I would have had this in 2006, And so I thought it was cool. And then when it took its current home over in the Trolley Barns, was a mentor there, went to several events, but never thought it was for me because I didn't have a tech startup. I wasn't doing anything in healthcare. And that was at least how I understood it, misunderstood it or not. That was just what I understood about it. But I remember when Michael Bertram, the founding CEO, who's still on our board, very generous, that was if you got to meet with Michael back then, like you should take it. So I was like, all right, let's see what he thinks of this idea. I took him the idea Batch. I remember sitting there in the conference room and he's like, all right, what do you got? What are you working on? Tell him the idea. It's like, okay, got it. But he was like, it's gonna be really hard to make any kind of scalable return. It's gonna be hard to raise money. And, of course I'm like, oh, what does he know? Come on. He's never run a gift business, but he knows everything. He knows a lot. And I remember him telling me at the time, he was like, subscriptions, direct to consumer, that's gonna be tough. Really you should pivot to gifts and especially corporate gifts because then you get high volume orders, you have high margin. And if you can grow it to the point where you're taking another established player's clients, they'll come buy you and you're good. And I left thinking, yeah, right. And then of course he was right. So to me, I think it was cool to see it happen, but back to that misinterpretation, because I was like, man, there's so many people in Nashville starting what one might call a non-investable, non-scalable company. And I was like, I do think it's EC's duty or role to still help those people because Nashville needs great, what we may call a small business, a mom and pop, a Main Street business, a lifestyle, whatever you want, however you want to group it. We need great businesses like that. And the EC can do that and the EC should do that. And if the EC Doesn't want to, okay. But very lucky that when I was hired, I got a chance to sort of craft that vision for the board that they got behind. And we're on a mission now. By 2027, our strategic plan calls for us helping 1,000 entrepreneurs a year. And they're here, and they're starting agencies, and they're starting businesses in their homes. And some of those, I mean, somebody's got to be the next giant, somebody's going to be the next Chipotle. Somebody has to. And so to think just because somebody's got an idea for a burrito shop, that's just, that's cute. Maybe you'll make enough to retire on one day. Well, maybe, but maybe also it could be, and we see that, your Hattie B's, your Slim and Huskies, like your Bongo Javas, they're doing, national stuff. So to me, that's what I love about it, is that we're able to help anybody. How we help them may differ. Because if you come in with a health tech idea that's super innovative, a breakthrough, and going to cure a disease, you're going to have to raise money. Yeah. You're going to have to get experts, and you're going to have to figure out how to get into some key decision makers. Way different than if you open a food truck, of course. But both deserve a shot in Nashville.
I wanted to invite you to our next Creative Assembly gathering. It's our relaxed, bi-monthly networking event in East Nashville, where ideas spark over drinks and creative collaborations come to life. We meet at 1530 Riverside Drive with light snacks, refreshments, and plenty of free parking. Whether you're an agency owner, part of a creative team, a freelancer, student, or even a business owner curious about collaboration, you're always welcome at Creative Assembly. RSVPs aren't required, but they help us plan for space and treats. Just search Creative Assembly Nashville on Eventbrite or visit creativeassembly.agency/events for details and the RSVP link. Come ready for connections, conversations, and creative collaboration. We can't wait to see you there. We've had a lot of agency owners and some CMOs on the show in the past, and they all talk about Nashville being a special place to start a business.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you get to experience it firsthand and more than anybody. I know Nashville's been amazing for us and the people of Nashville, but why is it that Nashville is such a special place?
I think the roots are probably in our songwriting culture. If you've ever been, I know you have, we all have, but if you've ever been to a songwriting round, Night at the Bluebird, nobody writes alone. All these guys and gals are like, yep, I wrote this song they list a bunch of people and they're telling some funny story. They were drunk, they were whatever. And then, Tim McGraw cut it. And you're like, oh, that's how that one. And every single time. And I think that is in the water here, so that, you were telling me the meetups and the stuff you do for other agencies. I think there's other cities that you'd be like, no, I don't talk to other agencies. I don't care what they're doing. If they could even take a client, I don't even know. They're not allowed here. And so I think for people in Nashville to say, how can I help? And I think that's what allows Nashville to be special, whether you're starting the next barbecue sauce empire or you're starting, some technology company, is that people generally want to help. And that's some of our job at the EC is if we think we can't, or if we know that there's somebody or some other organization that can help you better or faster, we'll be the first ones to say it. And we see that as our role too, to say, okay, yeah, here's what we can do. But if you go across town to this place, and I will send an email while you're on your way, they are going to be excited to see you and they're going to help you. So I think that is how Nashville has grown and why it's special and why people want to be here. Now I will say kind of there's a lore, I guess, where anybody will give you a meeting and then you got to earn the second one. But I think that idea of generosity of like, it's given to you and now let's see if you can earn it in terms of, okay, thanks Mark. I want to pitch you on my service. So I'm going to work really hard to have a solid pitch. If you'll just give me another meeting, you'll see. And it's up to you if you think that's worth your time or not. But when I started Cool People Care, I remember I looked, the Center for Nonprofit Management website had a directory of nonprofits, like 700. I clicked on every single one. And I went on there and tried to find the CEO or the development officer. I found them for about half of the 700. I emailed them all. Probably about 200 replied. I probably met with like 100. And then maybe close like 50 of those. But again, back to the relentlessness or back to just the openness of pick another city. If you email 300 people, you probably get 3 replies. And so to get as many people that were like, yeah, at least I'll listen to this kid who's got some website, whatever. So to me, I never forget that. And that's why, and sometimes I get grief and there's probably a balance I need to strike. But if somebody writes and says, hey, so you're doing this, I'm doing this, could I have 20 minutes? I always say yes. It can't be immediate. Sometimes it may be 2 months from now. But I have found more often than not that saying yes is better for me, for the city. That's how I met Matt Chevron, started Proof.
Yeah.
I spoke in his Belmont class. And any class I speak in, the last slide is my email. And I say, y'all reach out. I'm more than happy to keep this conversation going. And nobody ever reaches out. But Matt reached out. So we kept in touch. And then he moved back to Nat. He was working some job and traveling. He wanted to come back to Nashville. He's like, if I come back, think we could work on something together? And I was like, maybe. I don't know. Let's talk about it. And so it's because he reached out.
Mm-hmm. You're so right about the when you meet somebody and like, hey, you're on the way to another meeting and they're going to tee you up with a couple introductions.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it's your job to follow through and, don't let people down. But if you don't, like, they will give like nobody has ever given. And I mean, that's like the people I've met with in Nashville since we started our business, pretty extraordinary.
I bet.
And it's just through like somebody going, man, I'll introduce you to this person. And
that's
it's
right.
like, there's no way they're going to meet with me. But when they do, it always works. What do you see as the biggest like gaps today?
I think it's a lot of people would say there's a funding gap. And this is what we deal with most, I think, at the EC. Somebody walks in and they're like, I watched Shark Tank last night. Help me raise money. And you're like, okay, let's unpack that. And really what they mean is, I've got this new drinking glass. It's the best ever. I need to get it in every store in America. That's what they mean. But they come in, the only language they have is help me meet a venture capitalist who's going to invest in my line of glassware. And so we can talk through about, well, here's what you really need to understand about that. The only job an entrepreneur has is to not run out of money, full stop. And you can get money by sales. That's awesome because you have to keep it all. You can get money by equity capital, and that's great because you get a lot of money, but you don't keep the ownership. So when you make money, you got to give some of it away. You can make money by debt because that's fine because then at least what you sell, you get to keep, but you got to pay for the debt. And there's things like grants and other ways to get money too. So we really help entrepreneurs understand when they say, I need to raise money, when they say, I want to grow, what they're really saying, I think, is help me get some money. And sometimes the best way is just to say, let's get you a solid go-to-market strategy and the assets to do that. Sometimes it's, well, let's get your financial house in order so you can get a really favorable loan so you can keep ownership and build an asset that's worth more than that loan. So that's what I think it is. It's a nuanced understanding of that. If somebody, their best bet is to raise equity capital at whatever stage, angel on up, then I think it's really making those introductions. Nobody, contrary to popular belief, nobody raises money in a pitch competition. You had 2 minutes on stage, and if somebody writes you a check after 2 minutes, either you're really that good or they're really that dumb. Because most people who write checks are going to do extensive due diligence to make sure you're the real deal, your company's is what it says it is, you're in a growing market, all the stuff they have. But at least they can see you and you can impress them on stage. It'll lead to something. So that's why we have those. But I think that's the trick, is more relationships.
Yeah, the amount of people that have to come to you all the time and, hey, I'm going to launch a business. I mean, what do you see as like the biggest like challenge or the biggest advice you give to, a young entrepreneur that just has an idea? They don't even,
I mean, ideas are great, but ultimately ideas are worthless. Action is priceless. And so some of the first questions is like, what are you going to do about it? We see a lot of people have an idea. We have a curriculum that we encourage folks with just an idea to at least go through, because at the end of that curriculum, if you do what it says, you end up with kind of a 10 key things in launching a business. And it lets you see like, oh, yeah, my mom likes my barbecue sauce, but to really stand out at Kroger, I'm going to have to do some hard work. And maybe you're up for it, but at least you have a sober understanding of what it's going to take. Because a lot of people, and part of our job is sometimes to prevent people from starting businesses, because then they at least know like, oh man, if I had done this, I would end up hating barbecue sauce. It's all I would do, and I still wouldn't make that much money. And some people are like, no, somebody's got to be the next Sweet Baby Ray's. It may as well be me. So here's what it's going to take, and I'm going to do it. And maybe, okay, I got to save money for a year and then I'm going to do it. That's fine. So I think that some of it is what are you going to do about it? You have an idea, that's great. What are you going to do about it? And the action is what really makes something become reality. I think it's that. And then the two things I tell folks about, if you meet an entrepreneur, how do you know they have a shot? Number one is coachability. And it doesn't mean you have to do what everybody says, because you can meet with 100 mentors and get 100 different ideas. But at least means you have to be receptive to hearing it, because one of those may stand out and save you a lot of time and heartache. So are they coachable? And number two, are they gritty? Do they have grit? Because it doesn't mean you should keep going no matter what. It just means the first time something gets hard, you are willing to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if those two things are present, get rich quick never does. And so I think you've got to understand that there's something here you want to do and keep working at when it's difficult.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be difficult. That's the only thing I can guarantee.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's so helpful, though.
Mm-hmm.
I see so many people that, I've met with over the years that they say, hey, I want to go raise money for my idea.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why don't you go work on nights and on the weekends? Yeah. And why don't you prove this thing out before you go start asking people for money? And who knows, it may take off. You may not need the money, or you may go, God, there's no reason for me to go ask for money.
Well, look, if you were starting your agency today, you wouldn't sign a lease day one. And you may not sign a lease day 1,000.
Totally.
You, again, based on what's available today and where you are, now a building offers you the advantages you need at the size you are. But I think there's those what order do you want to do these things? And the first order, to your point, may be like you need to work some nights and get some cash. And then you can sort of baby step your way toward really seeing what that vision, because a couple other things we tell folks at the EC, number one is how many customer conversations can you have before you launch? Meaning how many, you think it's a great idea. Your mom thinks it's a great idea. Of course she does. It's her job. But are somebody really going to pay you for it? So we do a thing on one of our accelerators where on the go-to-market module, we encourage customer interviews, sort of unbiased, and to just collect feedback. What would you pay? What pain points to solve? And we incentivize it. And so I go to that when I say, look, next week you got to come back and tell me how many customer conversations you have. Whoever's had the most, I'm going to take you to lunch. You get an hour with me, ask me whatever you want. And so we did this once, and we went around the room, 7, 14, 3, 2, 77. I was like, you win. And she was launching a product. Basically, her customer was stylists, estheticians. Okay. And so she wanted to ask them. So she went, set up a table, got permission to set up a table in the lobby of a beauty school, whatever they're called, cosmetology school. And just as they were coming in class, she's like, man, will you answer these 5 questions for me? And so she learned and totally changed her product and how she thought about what to call it and how to go to market with it. Just by doing the work, making the call, can I come, and reaching that many people in one setting. And so when you see that, and the second thing is if you can just get one customer, and no, it's not $1 million customer, no, it's not going to let you quit your day job, but then you can, hey, what'd you think of the product? Did you like the service? Would you do business with me again? You start to ask all these questions. What can we add? And until you have customers, you just can't do it. So there is a process that can totally benefit you. And then you also realize, again, just like some of our success is letting that person realize they shouldn't have started it. We had a woman recently who went through one of our accelerators. We tracked her down. We like to keep up with our alumni. She goes, no, I had that business. I did it 2 years. And then I shut it down. I realized I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. And she was like, life's great. I'm not homeless. And I'm a COO at this company that actually my company used to use, and running this, and new mom, and like so happy. And that's a win, even though she did not retired at the beach. But, she ran her company, made a little bit of money, but learned so much about herself.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I know like your best days are going to be ahead, but as you like look back at your journey, like what's like one of the most proudest moments I guess you've had as like an entrepreneur?
Yeah. For me as an entrepreneur, I always liked helping people find meaning in their work. And that could have been with a vendor who had their own business. It could have been in who we hired. We ran our own warehouse. We didn't outsource our warehouse at Batch for 11 years while I was there. And unglamorous, 100%. But we had an employment program with a local nonprofit that was helping women coming out of incarceration, giving them an employment opportunity. That was incredibly meaningful. When COVID hit, we had this tribe of musicians and other retail refugees that needed some kind of job because they weren't going to tour. So we're like, yeah, we need hands. Come on. And so I believe there's a huge dignity in work, and to offer them that as best we could. We weren't perfect, but that was really cool. There are lots of businesses anybody could start with no employees. And there's certain models to that. I never minded the employees. I thought that was always a cool thing to have a team, to be around people, even though it's the hardest part, people, but it's the most wonderful part too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As you look ahead, like, I mean, to get your perspective, this is going to be interesting, but like 5 years from now, Nashville, the world you're in, like what's it look like?
You know, all the data is pointing to more people are going to start more companies. And there's a couple of reasons. One, AI, as we're seeing, some people say it's a job killer. There are certain jobs it is killing, has killed, will continue to kill. Mm-hmm. There's certain jobs it's going to create. Mm-hmm. And so you get to decide which side of that coin you want to be on. Macroeconomic data that came out recently, year over year, their new business applications are up 20%. This November versus last November, 25 versus 24. Wow. So people are starting businesses, full stop. 71 people are still moving to Nashville every single day. Some of those are coming with companies, meaning their companies moving them here. Eventually they'll think of an idea and probably become entrepreneurial. Gen Z, 60% of Gen Z says they want to start a company one day. So the market is there. That's our market analysis, is more people are going to start more companies. What kind of companies? How are they going to do that? Some of that will be unique to Nashville. We're seeing stuff in tourism, obviously music, definitely healthcare, but people are taking advantage. We would not have grown Batch like we did if Nashville were not growing with it or ahead of it. We rode that wave, absolutely. So I think if people can see where the city's growing, if they're here, and how they can leverage that, I get excited. In 3 years, you're going to have a new football stadium open. You're going to have the first buildings coming out of the ground in the East Bank. And in 5 and in 10, you're going to have people living over there. You're going to have a new performing center. So that just part of town, we can't even imagine it right now, the size of that. You're probably going to have some tunnel system to the airport. Your airport's going to open a second terminal in 15 years. So as I think about Nashville, it's only getting bigger, and that's phenomenal. Having been here since I was 8, there's certain things that I miss, of course, but I would much rather be in a city that's growing than one that's going the opposite direction. So what are those things going to open up? I have no idea what a Tesla tunnel dropping off at 7 new high rises on the East Bank. I have no idea what it's going to create something. Yeah. There's going to be some opportunity for a lot of entrepreneurs over there. I just don't know what it is yet, but there's something. I can promise you that.
Yeah. Well, man, you get to sit in the center of all of it. I'm sure when you go on your trips to other countries or other cities, like everybody wants to know what's the secret sauce of the Get City. So it's awesome you're the representative of that.
Well, thanks. It's fun to do. And I just tell them it's the people, like we said earlier, but some of it's the willingness to connect. I do love when I go now, when I was running Batch, I used to go like, okay, what's the local retailer that's like us? And now I'm like, where's the EC in this town? And there's several different models I've gotten to meet and make friends and peers and to learn best practices. There's some really cool stuff happening in other cities. I was telling a group last Friday, I try to go to one like big entrepreneurial conference thing a year, and I always try to go to one like smaller one. And so this past year, Boston's a big city, but I went, Boston University has the student-led innovation conference, the largest in the nation. So I got to go to that. That was cool. The year before I went to one in Charlotte. And so it's cool to see what other ecosystems are doing based on their unique value proposition of who they are, what city they're in. And I think cities and people, but lean into their uniqueness, will succeed.
Mm-hmm. Is there, as we start to wrap up, is there anything that maybe I didn't ask you or that you think would be great for the audience?
I don't think, it's funny because we talked about this ahead of time, and now, this idea of agency, it's so funny because if we did this podcast 10 years ago, number one, people would be like, what's a podcast? But number two, we probably would have assumed creative in front of that. And that could be design, it could be web, it could be video. And now like agency, when I think about the root of that word, just as we were talking, as my time there winded down, the number of sales gifts we were doing. And so we were a go-to-market strategy, a gift, because they were like, nobody's opening emails, but they'll open a gift. And so it was funny how much we learned about, we will be your go-to-market agency. And like, no, we're not designing anything and sending all this. You can find great people to do that. But this notion of how can I be an agent of fill in the blank, an agent of kindness, an agent of change, an agent of inspiration, an agent of community. I think that's all of our calling, religious, not religious, however you want to define it. And the entrepreneur gets a unique chance to decide they are an agent of whatever, great service, lower prices. And so to me, I think that's one thing I would leave folks with is is anybody could listen to this, not just people who are running or starting creative agencies, but I think anybody who has taken it upon themselves to, I want to help someone do something in the most charitable of senses or in the most business of senses, then you've got an agency, and maybe it's the agency of you. But I think if you lean into that and just figure out how can I help this person or this client, then you'll be successful at whatever form it takes, capitalist or not.
Yeah, such a great point. Great lessons today for the audience. Really appreciate you bringing it. If I'm an entrepreneur or I'm thinking about starting a business, how do I get involved with the EC? What's the easiest way to come down there and be a member?
Yeah, come down and see us, number one. Visit ec.co. That's our website. And while you're there, you can sign up. We do a free 20-minute consultation for anybody. So folks on our team will schedule a time, and they just want to hear about you and your business. So you don't have to drive down there. I get it, traffic and time, and you might have a day job. But we'll set up a time just to hear where you're at. And it could be the idea stage. It could be you're thinking about buying a business. And we'll tell you on that call, how we can help, but then how somebody else might be able to help. But you can also see on our events page, ec.co/events, we list events that we host. We do at least one a week. But we also highlight other events in the city that maybe we don't host, but we know that somebody's doing it and it's beneficial to entrepreneurs. So again, plugging in with that community is the first best thing. If it's our community, fine. If it's somebody else's, great. But not trying to do this alone is the first good decision you can make as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, man. Well, Sam, thanks for all you're doing for the city of Nashville and what you've done in the past. You've ran some amazing companies, and seeing what you're doing today is just very inspiring. So thank you for everything you're doing for entrepreneurship in the city. And thank you all for joining us for another episode of The Spark. This was a great one. Enjoyed the conversation with Sam. If you have any questions about the EC or Sam, drop them in the comments and we'll be sure to answer them back to you. And also, if you would, just do us a big solid favor and subscribe, rate, and review The Spark so that we can bring this to more people that need to hear it in the Nashville community. Thank you. Appreciate you being a part of it. And until next time.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Spark from Creative Assembly. Thanks for spending time with us and exploring the minds shaping Nashville's creative future. If you're walking away more inspired, connected, or energized, that's exactly the point. A big thank you to our sponsor, Snapshot, and the incredible team behind the scenes who make this show possible. Your support fuels every conversation and keeps collaboration alive. So if you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay creative, stay curious, and keep that spark.